typing and click is going to be distracting.
Hello?
Hello, everyone. Can anyone hear me?
Hey.
Hey, can everyone hear me? I just typed something in the chat to make sure everyone can hear me and that you all can. Yeah, all right, awesome. And does everyone mute their mics, please? And if you have a question, feel free to type in to the right. I want this session to be super interactive for everyone, and I'll introduce myself, and we can kind of just go from there. The top things that you guys want to talk about, I believe, is my perspectives on consulting, how to get noticed by firms, and then about the actual case interview. So I'll hit on all those points, and at any time, if you have a question, please just type it into the chat, and I'll see it, and then I'll kind of go from there. All right, so let me start by introducing myself. My name is DK Smith. I'm not sure if you all saw my LinkedIn or anything, but I went to University of Miami for an undergraduate degree in finance and math. Then went straight to law school at NYU Law. After that, I practiced on Wall Street for about a year and a half. I did a couple of things in between that. I started my own company in law school. I was living in China for 6 months. And yeah, then I practiced corporate law, mainly private equity for a firm called Strook & Strook. And then I was seconded at Goldman Sachs doing, I was the assistant to the treasurer there for the board of directors for the GS Bank. So that was cool. Then from there, I decided to lateral into management consulting at BCG. So I was at Boston Consulting Group for about a year and a half, and I left recently, about 6 weeks now, and I started my own firm. So now I have my own strategy advisory firm focused on value and impact advising. And I also am a lawyer still, so I have my own law firm kind of on the side of that. So specifically, my perspective on consulting. Number one, I think it's an excellent career path. Anyone that doesn't necessarily know what they want to do when they grow up, it's kind of a common thing of many consultants say, because we touch so many different things. Any given week, any given day. You can be, in an industry doing, I don't know, pricing for consumer goods 1 month, and then 6 months later, you can be doing, high-level strategy for a defense firm, right? So it just varies, and that's what I like about it. I love that, not one day is typical. You have so many different situations, different clients. Every day, you have fires to put out. So it's really cool, very dynamic way to work, I believe. And I don't know if you're excited about, sort of the hustle, the day-to-day, it has to be very gritty, being a self-starter, being entrepreneurial. Consulting is definitely, I don't know, it's something you should consider. I know it's a launching pad for most people. Like for me, it's a launching pad into my own business, and that's very, very common. From many consultants, whether you're at KPMG, BCG, Bain, McKinsey, wherever. It's really an awesome starting path for whatever you want to do. All right. Let's see. Second question: so how to get noticed by firms? I think that boils down to three things, right? Number one, networking events. Every firm has a networking event, so I'd encourage you all to, or throughout the semester, they should have multiple networking events. I would encourage you all to find out where they are, how to get access to them, right? And then attend as much as you can and learn as much about the firm as possible. Every single touch point counts when you're recruiting. The second point I'd make about this is, reaching out to people via LinkedIn. Find your favorite firm and, figure out who works there and reach out to them. Cold email, I get several cold emails a day. I try to respond to at least 2 or 3 a week with people who want consulting advice, or, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time to tell me about your career path? So, I know I personally do this, and I know there are a lot of other consultants that do this as well. So really, no matter where you want to go, no matter what you want to do in your career, reach out via LinkedIn to people who are doing what you want to do. And you never know, you send out 20, 25, you get a 10 or 20% hit rate. It's pretty good, right? That's 3 to 5 solid conversations you can have. And then lastly, I would say your alumni. Like, lean on your alumni and figure out, okay, go through exactly who's doing consulting, where they are, and reach out to them. They're more likely to respond to you because you'll have something in common. Yeah. So, yes. I was looking at Paul's comment. Yeah, please, like, interrupt me at any time. Specifically, I love questions, so please. I don't want to just, like, I'm talking to myself. You all can, if you have a question, let me know. Like, I guess you can, like, raise your hand in the chat, and I'll unmute you, and you can ask your question so everyone can hear. So if anyone wants to raise their hand right now, or like just type in a question or something, I'll unmute you, and then we can have a dialogue. And make sure when you're typing, you type to everyone in the chat. Yeah, all right. So, Gemma, let's see. Question. Okay. Where are you?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Boom. All right, Gemma, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, sure. So you have a really interesting background. I know that you were
I don't think we can hear
kind of
you.
oh, can you hear me? Um, hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. My my computer was on mute, so that's my bad. Yes, please go ahead.
So I was just saying, I know you have a background in law and saw that you were working at a law firm and then moved into BCG, but what kind of sparked your interest into moving from practicing law full-time into going into consulting? And I guess having that background in law, do you think that helped when it came to working on different projects or in terms of recruiting? I guess the logic behind these interviews and all of that.
Yeah, to answer your first question is what sparked the interest into consulting. I knew going into law school that I didn't want to be a lawyer forever. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur eventually. I wanted to either run my own firm or become a CEO or COO of a larger company or a startup or something. And coming from going from law and into like the startup world or being an entrepreneur, you kind of get labeled as a lawyer, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense that you were practicing law. What's a lawyer know about startups? What's a lawyer know about running a company from a CEO perspective or a CEO perspective? And so I knew that I would have that have that brand on me if I went straight from law into the startup world or into the operations world, right? So I said, okay, well, there's two ways I can sort of rebrand myself. Number one, I can go to business school, or number two, I can go straight into lateral into consulting. Quite honestly, one was cheaper than the other, so I just decided to lateral into consulting. And I already had a law degree. I didn't really feel there was a need for me to get an MBA. I think an MBA is a good degree, but personally, I believe a law degree is a little better. I am partial, yeah, to my law degree and experience. And then the second question was, how did it impact my interviewing? And then I guess a sub question for that is like, how did it impact my day to day while I was at BCG? Being a lawyer, you're taught to, you don't really think about numbers much. So that was a huge shift, right? So when I was practicing for my case interviews, I would exhaust all of the qualitative material and go through everything from a qualitative lens, early on. And then my case interview partner was like, hey, you have to think about the quant stuff. And so shifting from like qualitative to quantitative thinking was, a pretty big jump for me, just because, though I had no need to really practice that type of thinking, in years really.
Right.
So that was a big jump. And then being a lawyer at BCG, or being a lawyer and a management consultant at BCG was, I'd say it kind of gives you a leg up because most people have PhDs or they have MBAs. And, I was one of a handful of JDs in the Chicago office. And because of that, it's tricky because BCG in particular, they don't have a ton of lawyers. And so, you kind of fit it into the, we call it ADCs, alternative degree candidates, which, that's where the PhDs are, or like, if you have a master's in something, anyone but an MBA, right? And coming from a legal background is a little bit different. So, it was tricky from that standpoint, but I think it helped me in other ways insofar as I was able to get on certain projects that required a contract analysis, right? Like, hey, or we have an internal listserv for all consultants and all associates in the Chicago office and in North America and around the world. Someone would every few weeks, hey, anyone know a lawyer, or do we have any lawyers that could analyze this for us, for this case? And that was a way, you can sort of prove your value, add your value, and try to get on that case team for another case, or really add value to the firm that way. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yep. Anyone else? Any other questions? Let's see, we have 27 people here, so someone should have one question. Okay, from Matt, Michael, Matt. I can unmute you if you like, Michael, and you can ask that question. Yeah, let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Great. Well, DK, thank you so much for having us, by the way. My question is geared towards something that you put on your LinkedIn. You mentioned that you were an athletic tutor and mentor at the University of Miami. I was wondering if you were an athlete yourself, and what kind of transferable skills there were between athletics and your work that you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. So
well, I should say you're doing in BCG.
Oh, okay.
Oh, your work that you're doing in BCG.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Makes sense. Yes. So I actually was an athlete. So I started off playing football, college football at Eastern Illinois. Played there for my first year. Transferred to University of St. Francis. The following year, I had to be closer to home. My brother was sick, so I needed to be, within an hour distance from Chicago. So did that for about 2 years. Blew my knee out actually, and then transferred to University of Miami. And I was like, well, I can't play ball anymore, but I can still, be involved in athletics. I had a pretty solid GPA at that point, and think it was a good way to get paid to tutor and and mentor athletes. And so that really, it was very helpful. I was able to connect with the athletes on a different level because most of the tutors have never been athletes before, or at least at a collegiate level. So I can kind of empathize with them when they're they have 2 a days or they're coming from practice, and so it's a little different from a bit of a different perspective. And I definitely think that the skills I learned being an athlete, really just being a part of any team, are very, very helpful, right? Because when you're on, let's say, you're a freshman in high school or in college, and you're on a team, you're kind of starting from the bottom to prove yourself, right? So, and that's kind of the same way, in consulting, even in law, like you can go into any new environment, you're starting from the bottom, and you have to work your way up, prove yourself. I don't care if you were, high school All-American, if you were champion in the math club, whatever that is. When you step into a new environment, you have to reprove yourself, or prove yourself again. And so having gone through that before, stepping into a new environment, okay, then let me show my skills, let me showcase what I can do to prove myself and add value in a way that reflects my true potential and what I can bring to the table. So that would be a big one. Another big one would be just teamwork in general. Knowing your role. Knowing if you are a consultant or you're an associate or a VP or principal or a partner, everyone has their own role. Just like any sports team, right? Any team environment. Knowing your role and then adding value. Knowing the dynamics, the ins and outs of being on a team, right? Insofar as understanding that, you don't want to be, if it's basketball, right? You don't want to be the ball hog, right? You want to be able to, pass the ball. You want to have, make sure you have a solid center that can get you rebounds. So again, it's all about sort of knowing your role and being on that team and not being, not being selfish, because at the end of the day, when you're at a BCG or any kind of consulting firm, you definitely, it's a team effort. You don't get any individual stars or medals for for shining. Yes, you want to excel and ace your module, but at the same time, the whole goal is for the team to deliver and add value to the client, right, on behalf of BCG. And that that really takes a team effort. Whether that's hey, someone has a super hard module that week, your week's pretty light, you will stay late or stay after to help that person out, just because it moves the ball forward faster for everyone. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway of being on a team, and how it translates into a career consulting.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Benjamin.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, all good.
Cool. Thank you for hosting this info session. So my question is more relating to information sessions with BCG or with any consulting firm, and just interviewing and kind of getting face-to-face interaction. What soft skills / presentation of yourself do you think is most valuable to present yourself as? See I know that different sectors prefer typically different types of candidates. So when you were presenting yourself to do consulting, what did you try and pitch yourself as?
That's a great question. Firstly, definitely show up in a manner that's consistent to the firm or industry, right? So, I wouldn't go into an information session for a consulting firm, with a full suit and tie and buttoned up. We're just more of a little bit of a relaxed environment. Whereas as a lawyer, you may want to wear the full suit and tie, right? And the white shirt, or for our ladies, dress a little more formal. Depending on which industry you're trying to go into. And for consulting specifically, it's a little more laid back, a little more lax. That rarely did I ever wear a full suit if ever. I think I've only had a tie on. I only had a tie on during interviews, really. But besides presentation, I think you want to highlight. It's called like the three things, right? So you want to highlight your ability to be entrepreneurial, right? Whatever that looks like, whether you started, a club, or you were, anything you started. It can be, super informal. It can, you start a fantasy football league, right? Anything that you kind of like started yourself, that, highlight that, right? The ability to be entrepreneurial. The ability to be a self-starter, right? And that's not the most niche thing, but it is definitely different from being entrepreneurial, right? Because being a self-starter can translate into anything. Whether you, I don't know, any situation where you had to take initiative, right, and be the first one to show up, and start. Where studying for final grades are a good reflection of that, right? Because you have to study on your own. You have to be a self-starter, to study, to get great grades, to get in front of maybe a VP at a consulting firm or wherever, right? Just being a self-starter and taking that initiative. And then the third thing I'd say, I think leadership. Like, leadership is something that's universally great, because your goal when you go into a consulting firm or a type environment, yes, you want to be able to add value, but they're looking at you like, hey, will he or she be the next manager? Can I see her being a VP in 2 years? And that's kind of how they're evaluating you. So you want to make sure you highlight those three things: being entrepreneurial, being a self-starter, and being a leader. As far as your soft skills that you want to highlight in front of these consulting firms as you interview. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
Yep. And how'd you raise your hand, by the way, Benjamin? I'm still kind of new to the Zoom thing.
Yeah, sure. So there's a little button under the participants where same place where you chat. It says mute me, and then you can press raise hand, and it will just raise them until you press it again, and then it will go.
Ah, perfect. So for everyone, if you have questions, raise your hand. All right. Emily, I know you have a question. All right, let's.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I heard that there's a high burnout rate in consulting. So I want to ask, how true is that, and how long would you say the average consultant stays in the industry before, as you say, like they launch into a different path?
Mm-hmm. So when you say high burnout rate, can you unpack that a little bit?
So kind of like, I heard that it's a very like stressful career path, lots of travel, and that requires a lot of stamina. So I guess I heard that like people don't stay in the industry for a very, very long time, and they want to like transfer into like a different company or do their own business, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I would start off by saying, so any career that you, well, not any, but almost any career that you enter into, you're gonna need a lot of stamina, and you're most likely gonna work long hours, especially if either consulting or banking or accounting or law or finance. Any of those types of like high, very demanding industries. It's going to be stressful. You're going to work long hours, and but hopefully you'll be learning a ton along the way, right? And so let me answer your question a little more directly as it pertains to consulting. As a consultant, yes, a lot of the times I was on a plane, but there were some months where I was local and I didn't travel at all. Right? So the stamina piece is pretty consistent. You kind of can drive a little bit, of how much you want to travel versus not, and at least at BCG they work with you. Obviously you can't get your pick all the time, but if you don't want to, take 3 to 4 flights a week, depending on the capacity, they work with you a lot. And the average time, I believe, is, I don't have any data on this, but if I had to guess, it would be about 2 years. About 2 years. About 1 to 2 years, I'd say people stay. And depending on what level, right? If you come in as a consultant at BCG, 1 or 2 years. And then I think if you come in like as an associate out of undergrad, it's 2 years. They expect you to kind of be there for 2 years, I believe. So I would say the average is about 2 years, and people kind of go, because after 2 years, you can make, I think you make a PL, a project leader. So, and you would know whether you're trending on that path or not trending on that path, and the whole, the promotion like path and even like the transition path is all very transparent, right? So they tell you like early on, hey, you're trending here, you're trending there, you should work on here. If you want to stay, you need to be at this level. If you don't want to stay, think about this. Everything's pretty, at least at BCG, everything is transparent. They, like, I remember my first week starting, they're like, they said, hey, by the way, we know you're starting here. Statistics say you most likely won't, be here, forever. So, within the next couple months, start thinking about, what you may want to do afterwards. And we're here to provide you. So we have our own career center within BCG that we get job offers from, like, exclusively. So, or they do. And so once you're an alum, you're an alum forever. So, I have access to that sort of network. But the burnout rate, I mean, I see people leaving for startups, and that may be like a little cushier of a lifestyle. But I'd encourage you, for your first 2 years, whatever you do, you want to be working as much as you can, just so you can ramp up those skills and you can get ahead of everyone, everyone who's not working, those long hours, and because you'll learn so much. I like to think about consulting as, a way for me to improve my skills, learn new skills, and get better as a professional, and get paid to do so, right? Instead of paying for school. So so I encourage you, no matter where you go, to sort of like push yourself, and to get to increase your stamina that way. That answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yep. Anyone else have a question or want to raise their hand or anything they'd like me to? Okay. So we have two. There's Toomey and then there's Medina. Medina has a question. So I'll get Medina, type out your question and I'll answer that. I know you're listening on your phone, so. And then Toomey, I'll get to you after Medina. I think you should be able to unmute yourself, Medina, on here. And feel free to send it like piecemeal if you want to just, if you're typing out your question right now. All right, so the question is, can I speak on, or do I know of anyone who has participated in the social impact immersion program or the secondment program? Yeah, so I know a few people that have participated in the—
It's 14:30.
Sorry, that's my computer. That have participated in the secondment program. I don't know anyone that's participated in the impact immersion program, but I can speak on the secondment program. It's really good. Actually, before I left, I was tapped to participate, and so we have something called like magic hours, where you can work with a nonprofit when you're not billing regular hours, so on the weekends or on Fridays or days you're not traveling. And I was going to work with super prominent nonprofit, and so there's a ton of opportunities for you for BCG employees to really take advantage of being impactful and being socially impactful in your community. And on the secondment side, I have a friend that's working it's a for-profit actually, but it's a social impact company. And I know people that have gone overseas, gotten secondments in London, for example, have gotten secondments at huge big name firms and companies, as well as smaller local companies. So it really just varies. And this secondment program is an awesome opportunity for you to gain skills and improve your network, while you're still at BCG, and still have like the comfort and safety net of a BCG behind you, and the full support of the staff and all the perks and amenities that come with being a consultant. Is that good? Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a ton of volunteer and social impact opportunities, especially at BCG, and I'm sure most other firms, I would guess that they have some sort of similar program, but I just can speak on BCG. And I know Toomey had a question, so you can feel free to unmute yourself, and I will do my best to answer it.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the workshop. Okay, and my question: in what way do you believe we could to create that?
So it broke up a little bit. You said in what way could you do something to create value? Is that the question?
So the question is, in what way can we prepare ourselves to create value and to add value at BCG or whatever consulting company?
Got it. Okay.
As undergrads.
Okay, so how can you prepare yourself to add the most value to a consulting firm or like a BCG? I think the best thing you can do is to continue to obviously get good grades and perform in school, but really, really just be yourself, right? So all of the small things that make you, just don't shy away from that, right? And I know, especially at BCG, they really highlight, diversity. They really highlight, and not just diversity is like, sex, gender, or nationality, but like diversity of everything, right? Like, what do you love to do, and really just highlight that, and don't shy away from it, right? Just really, and be proud of that. Wear the badge, whatever your badge is, wear that badge, and I think that alone adds the most value because you have a very unique perspective. Coming from wherever we all do, right? So just really highlighting that perspective, why it's unique, and I think that because once you get to a BCG or any top consulting firm, we know you're smart. Of course you're intelligent. We see your grades and everything. We know you pass the case interview, but beyond that, how do you further differentiate yourself? And I think that's just being yourself, whatever that means. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Kaylee, you have a question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So given that you were kind of using consulting as a transition / like launching platform for future goals, how did you choose BCG and how did it prepare you to go off on your own?
Yeah, so I chose BCG because I have friends that work BCG and Bain and McKinsey, and a few friends that work, and I think I have one friend that works at KPMG, another friend that works at Strategy, and then another one that works at PwC. Yeah, and I don't know, I just felt like my friends at BCG, they all really love their job. They all really love, the firm, and it's pretty much it. It's more about fit, after that. After you, especially like a BCG, McKinsey, Bain, like we pretty much do the same type of work. So, where are you going to fit in, really? And like I know a Strategy, and they do great work and different types of work, and a PwC does great work in different types of work. So really, it's like your personal fit, right? I didn't know this, but so I only applied to BCG. I knew I wanted to go there. Like, okay, I want to go there. I'm going to just go. I know I want it, so I'm going to interview there. Apparently, that's not the recommended path. That's not the best path, especially if you're coming from undergrad or business school. For me, I lateraled from a lawyer, so I was in a unique situation. But apply across the board, see where you get in, and then once you get offers from certain firms, it's all about fit after that, and really it's about you interviewing them and understanding not just the value you can bring to them, but how can they boost and impact your brand and your value, right? And depending on what your goals are, that's it. I think any firm, any consulting firm you go to, especially like the top tiers, you can it can't hurt your resume, and you're going to learn a lot of amazing things, and then you're going to just be challenged every day, and it's going to prepare you for whether you want to go off on your own, whether you want to work at a startup or work in-house at another consulting firm. That experience you get is going to be invaluable, and you're going to be surrounded by incredibly talented people no matter where you go. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I know, Allie, you had a question. I see your hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I know you went into BCG kind of as, I forget the word you used for it, but an alternative degree candidate.
Yes.
And I was kind of wondering about the opposite. So if there's people who go from undergrad to BCG or another management consulting firm and do like either JD or PhD programs from there.
Yes. So that I actually know someone that left BCG to go get a law degree from Stanford, and that's a pretty common. Well, law degree is not so common, but going to get an MBA is the most common thing. But they support you if you want to go to PhD or a JD or a master's or something. Yeah, BCG, that's pretty. They support you whatever graduate degree you want to get, and a lot of the times, I'm not sure how it works for like JDs and PhDs, but I know for sure if you are there at BCG for 2 years as an associate out of undergrad, I believe they pay for your business school, and then you have to work for BCG, I think 3 years or something like that, or two or 3 years or something to kind of so you don't have to pay that money back. But I think it's something similar for JDs. I'm not quite sure, but that would definitely be a question and that'd be a great question to ask, at a recruiting event or at a networking event. Whether it's a BCG or not, right? Every firm, that's something that you all should be asking every single firm. Hey, if I go to your, if I choose you, or if I'm at your firm after undergrad, what kind of options do you have, for grad program assistance or repayment, or do you sponsor your consultants and associates to pursue a graduate degree? So, yes.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any questions about the case interview process or how much you should be casing? I know that's pretty common when I get a lot is how many cases is the right, what's the right number, or what should I be doing? Just because do I have to have a degree in economics or finance to do well the case interview? All right, go ahead, Benjamin.
Yeah, hey, so I had a question about the cases specifically. So I come from a pretty quantitative background, but when I've looked at some of these case interviews before, and they're usually there's some numbers, but they're mainly qualitative. If you were to approach these case interviews, when you were 20 or 21 or whatever, would you approach them more as a qualitative standpoint when, if from like reading it and saying, okay, this is how I want to problem solve it, or would you look at it from more a quantitative standpoint and say, okay, here are the numbers, here's my estimates, and here's my probability of, this happening, or maybe a combination of both. And I was just looking a little bit to try and get some insight from you on how you'd approach it, or, maybe a combination of the two methods.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. You need to approach it from both, right? And so for me, I think I mentioned earlier that being an attorney, I was approaching it purely, qualitative, and these are the facts, and the data doesn't matter. And then I'm sure you probably approach it as the opposite, right? Where all qualitative stuff does not matter, but in reality, you have to marry the two. You have to really put your qualitative hat on and your quantitative hat on, and do well on both fronts. Whether that's because there will undoubtedly be a time where you have to do a lot of math for a case, and then you will have to do some brainstorming based on the numbers that you came up with. So great, you can do math. You have it. You have the equations right, you have the numbers right, but now what do they mean, and how does that impact the business, or how does that impact the specific case, and what does high profitability mean in this industry, right? What are the margins, and compare, and knowing how to compare and contrast through time, and through competitors, that kind of stuff is invaluable, and that's more of the qualitative. That's where the qualitative things really come into play, is after your analysis, your recommendations, and then what is that? What are the broader implications for the case, and even in real life, right? You can, I've been in teams and situations where we have the math right, but we go present this to the CEO, his questions aren't about the math. Like, they assume, you get that right. Okay, how does this impact our business? What will our shareholders think of this? And what will the board think of this? If we buy this company, or if we allocate our capital this way, if we, do some sort of participate in some sort of share buyback program, what does that mean for the broader themes of the company? And those are real life. Those are like real life situations and questions. So, if you're casing, do your best to focus on both. Yes, you have to get the math right, and also understand the qualitative part and what that actually means, and what does that math mean, in the universe of that case. Does that answer your question? Unmute you.
Yeah, sorry, I pressed mute by accident. Yeah, I think that was really helpful. So what you're saying is to basically take get the data, get your analysis, and then make sure you pitch it as well, and look at who your audience is and show the actual impact of it.
Exactly. Exactly. Understand who the stakeholders are, and how impactful, or how your recommendations will impact them. If you're doing a profitability question, the stakeholders, probably the CEO, the customers, and the board, right? So understand how that impacts, how each decision will impact each stakeholder.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions regarding the cases, or are you all already started a case, or Devin? Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, as someone who's going to be going into case interviews in the next couple of months, I was wondering, were there any specific resources that you found particularly helpful when prepping for case interviews, like Case in Point or something along those lines, either books or online resources that you thought really helped guide your case learning process?
Yeah, for sure. I can send around. I have a 2-pager deck that I have. I can send it around to Paul. I'm sure he can circulate it to everyone. But for sure, case interview secrets and Case in Point. Focus on a case interview secrets. To me, teaches you why the case interviews are important and the background knowledge behind that. And then Case in Point teaches you tactics, but be very careful to not rely on Case in Point too much, because you can seem mechanical or a little bit too much like a robot in your analysis, because you still want to inject a sense of creativity when you're casing, and not just be profitability, or the 3 Ps, or a 5 forces model and strengths and weaknesses and SWOT analysis. You really don't want. Yes, know that stuff, but when you're casing, what the interviewer is looking for is, what are you doing within the universe of this case to drive the case forward, right? If the case is, about profitability, and you probably shouldn't start with, or maybe you probably shouldn't start with okay, we want to know all about, our customer history, right? And maybe you may want that information, but is that really the most crucial information in terms of profitability? It's probably your variable costs and your fixed costs, and your quantity sold, right? So things like that. So you want to ensure that you're focusing on the specific case and not just a generic framework from a Case in Point or any other kind of book. So, but yeah, those 2 resources. If you really want to get some extra credit, I would say business model generation, yeah, I think that's the name of it. You'll see it when I circulate the resources. And then the other one is Competitive Strategy by Michael Porter, I believe. But that's super high level stuff. You don't need that, but I read them and they were helpful for me to get a grasp on, just strategy in general, no matter what you do in business.
Awesome. Super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jim, I believe you had a question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you again for answering all these questions. It's been super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of related to your answer to my first question when you were talking about really changing your mindset from more of a qualitative style of thinking to quantitative when you were moving into consulting. So how or which ways did you find most effective to kind of get into that more quant thinking mindset? Whether it was like just practicing like analysis and cases with someone else, or what other tactics specifically to, I guess, improve your quantitative skills? Because I similarly have more of a qualitative background, and so I know that's one thing I really need to work on going into recruiting and case interviews.
Yeah, one big way to improve that is just don't shy away from the numbers. Find those hard cases that you are probably not going to like, that have a lot of numbers, a lot of zeros, different variables, and just do the math, right? And I believe Case Interview Secrets, they have like a math program or something. I think it's free. You can just go and just drill math for hours, or well, maybe not hours, but maybe like 20 minutes at a time, or 5 minutes at a time, or something like that. So just keep drilling, and be aware that you don't have to get the math perfect, right? But you want to be able to be in the ballpark, because it's helpful when you're in a room and in a real case room, and you have all these different things going on. Everyone has their own module. If someone writes something on the board or they're explaining something, you want to be able to do that math in your head. And oh, okay, this is about a 30% margin, or if we do this, if we make this decision, for the company, that will result in about a 15% margin. Whereas this division is doing 35, so we should probably prioritize the latter division, right? So just things like that. That's why the math is super helpful, and why it's important to practice it beyond the case. But for the case, you definitely want to, there's no penalty for rounding up or down and getting in the ballpark of a number. No one's going to ever ask you to multiply 39 times like 211,000. Like, it's just not going to happen. So you probably say, okay, 200,000 times 40, that's about right? And so making sure that you're comfortable doing that, and please practice you're allocating your zeros and knowing where your zeros are. That's a big one that trips a lot of people up. 2 billion is a lot different from 200 million, and that can mess up the entire. I've seen it happen. I've seen people, just miss a zero and just throws the entire case off. So, a warning.
Thank you. And could I just ask a quick follow-up?
Of course, yeah.
So when you were preparing for recruiting, when did you kind of realize, I guess, like you had become really comfortable with this type of thinking and felt like prepared to go into all of these interviews? But I mean, also going full time into working at BCG, was there a point where you realized you had kind of gotten these skills down, or you just continued to learn like through the process and into working full time there?
So to answer your question directly, no, there's never a point where you're like super comfortable with it, but there's a point where you get better and you're constantly improving. Just being quite candid, some of my first feedback after my first 3 months was that, hey, you should be, my first 6 months, you should be thinking more bottoms up, right? Which means that you should be thinking more quant and not qualitative. But, like, hey, I'm an attorney. It's not, just can't turn it on and off, right? So I think you're going to constantly be, and that's feedback for a lot of JDs that go into consulting. But so you're never going to be 100% great at it. And you should be constantly improving and constantly challenging yourself. But what you want to do is be confident, right? You want to be confident that you have the numbers right. You want to be confident that you have all your zeros placed correctly. That's most of the battle is just understanding and having confidence in your math and not being frazzled or shaky when you throw out a number. Even if the number's wrong, like, throw it out confidently. I'd say, and you get comfortable with that, the more and more you practice, because, even though you're practicing by yourself, or you may even have a case partner, there's absolutely no substituting, the pressure and stress you feel, when you're in a real case interview with the person that's going to tell you have a job or not, right? And then, that seems, is almost like lightweight compared to, when you're in a room and the CEO is literally next to you and, they're making a $2 billion decision based on your recommendation. So it gets progressively more stressful, but, at every stage, you have to just be confident. If you throw out, we recommend, you do this with, with this $2 billion and you're not confident, it's not helpful for anyone. So and as it translates more directly to what you're going through, if you throw out a recommendation or a number during your case interview and you're not confident, the interviewer is going to see that. So the way that I'd say build more confidence by practicing more and putting in the hours and getting comfortable being uncomfortable with the math. So.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, so Medina had a question. All right, so I'm going to read it out loud. Adding to Gemma's last question, in prepping for cases and going to real interviews, what are your best tips and tricks for getting past those moments where you feel stuck or confused during the interview, in addition to confidence? That's a great question. I'll answer it this way. You want to always be hypothesis driven, all right? And I'm sure if you've read Case in Point, Case of New Secrets, and you've done your homework on how to be a consultant or whatever, you hear that a lot. I know I heard that a lot when I was prepping, and I was like, what the hell does that mean? What does it mean to be hypothesis driven? Like, what does that even mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means that you should always have a direction, right? So always have your foot on the gas in a direction, even if it's wrong, right? If you say, if you have a case and it's about profitability, and you say, well, I hypothesize that we should increase revenue by, stealing more wallet share from our current customers, right? That's a hypothesis. It could be totally wrong, but at least you have a hypothesis, and now you can test that, right? And so now you have your foot's on the gas, and you're going in a solid direction, and you're able to test your hypothesis. And if your hypothesis is wrong, you say, okay, that it seems to me that maybe we shouldn't focus on the revenue side of profitability because X, Y, Z. Let's now shift to cost, and I'm going to, update my hypothesis and create a new hypothesis to reflect, that I think that we should start lowering costs by negotiating with our suppliers or something like that, right? And that being hypothesis driven ensures that you're never stuck, right? Because you're always going to be testing one thing. And if that fails, and you just go, exit out, create another hypothesis, and then another hypothesis. And so that is how you keep from being stuck or confused. And also be organized in your numbers and your math. Like, you definitely want to keep your paper organized. That limits confusion, and being hypothesis driven limits the feeling of being stuck. Hopefully that was helpful for you all. Awesome. We have time for like one or two more questions. So if anyone has another question they want to ask, or something's on their mind regarding the interview process, the soft skills, or the behavioral interview. Yeah, please type out your question. All right, so the question is, between now and when we will be applying, what kind of skills should we be working on to develop that will help us in consulting? Okay, so the skills you should be working on. So everyone, I don't care if you're a math major, practice the basic math. Practice your addition, your subtraction, your division and multiplication, and knowing what the zeros are. The best way I found is through the case interview secret. I think the case interview secret / math or something. You guys can Google it and find what that is, but practice that, your mental math. Getting sharper, obviously practice the cases, practice the behavioral questions, develop stories that will highlight your leadership skills, your entrepreneurial skills, and your ability to be a self-starter. What other skills? Being comfortable in a room, doing math. I would say even challenge yourself to have your friends write out like 20 math problems and
You're telling me the letter E, chuck this cheese?
So, have your friends write down math problems, and you do it in front of them, and that will help you get comfortable doing math in front of other people. Because again, even if you are, I consider myself pretty good at math, but it's not like doing math in front of someone they're watching your every move. So yeah, just practice the basic consulting skills, the basic interview skills. And listen, even if you don't get a job in consulting, these things that you'll be practicing will carry over into any job interview, right? And so it couldn't hurt, period, right? It will make you a better professional, it'll make you a better interviewer, and it may even land you a job in consulting. So, I think that's it. Paul, do we have any, yes. One quick last question. When you do math, are you allowed scratch paper? You're definitely allowed. You're definitely allowed scratch paper during the interviews. You will have scratch paper. It's helpful to do it in your head, but you for longer equations and more complicated equations, you definitely want to write out every single variable and then plug in numbers for those, and then walk the interviewer through your math. Maybe in a couple weeks or later on in the semester, as things get closer to interview time, I can work with Paul. We can do another follow-up that will, answer specific questions about the cases. Maybe do a 30-minute session about specific cases or math. If that's helpful for you all. I'm happy to help. Okay, so Paul asks, are there certain business frameworks? So yes, be familiar with them all, but honestly, I would never put the 4 Ps on your paper when you're actually writing out, when you're actually interviewing for case interviews, just because it's not. It can seem like a little bit overly generic, right? So you want to be familiar with the 4 Ps, with the SWOT analysis, fortify forces. Those are all things you definitely have to know. But weave it into the current case, and don't call it the 4 Ps. Change it up the terminology a little bit. Instead of company, customer, and competitor, maybe you want to say the company would be management co, and the customers are specific to the type of customer base you're dealing with in the case, in that specific case, right? So just tailor. Yes, be familiar with the SWOT analysis, 4 Ps, and I think the 3 Cs, but tailor it all to your case. All right, so if there's any, Paul, check out Handshake. And Paul will send out some more information. I'll send you all that three pager that will give you some guides, and happy studying. This was fun. So I hope you all are having fun studying, and reach out to Paul or email me if you have specific questions, and I can try to get back to you. But it's better to do these broader sessions. All right. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Take care, and thank you all for attending. Hope this was helpful.